So next up is functions. Functions I briefly touched on before, and I showed a little bit of whatever on how to make functions, but now we're going to really dive deep into them. Actually, we may not dive really deep into them to understanding like this and how classes used to be, but yeah. So a function is basically a way to do something, and it will create a scope that you can call as many times as you want. So let's get into it. So first way to make a function is using the function keyword. So the parameter of this is function greet world. So that's your function name. And then here is your where you put your parameters, and then you say console.log hello world. Maybe they're going to call these arguments. I don't know. But anyway, we're going to make a function declaration called get reminder. So function get reminder. Okay, that's it. So function get reminder, parentheses, and an empty code block. Let's run that. Cool. In the function of get reminder, log the reminder to the console. Console.log water the plants. That reminds me, I need to water my plants. Run. Okay, let's create another function with the useful Spanish. Okay, function greet in Spanish. Okay. And it's going to say buenas tardes. Console.log that. Great. So yeah, what's interesting about this is the when you declare a function, actually it doesn't matter where you declare it. It is when you declare it using the function keyword. If you declare a function using the function keyword, it is accessible anywhere in your scopes, as long as it was declared inside of a in the global scope. So I could technically say get reminder over here, and it would work because this is accessing this function. So order does not matter when declaring functions. Another thing that people don't like about JavaScript. I do not like that. That's why I always use the arrow functions, because order matters. So calling a function, you use the name, and then you use the open and close parentheses to run that function. So imagine, okay, define a function called say thanks. Function say thanks. Okay, console.log this garbage. Yay. Boink. Great. So now, keep hitting save. Control enter. Okay, so now I'm going to say, so notice how it did not call that function. So I'm going to say thanks. Okay. Now I'm going to run it. Now it'll call that function. It doesn't call it when I do this. Okay. It did not call that function. It did not run. So you have to have those open and close parentheses in order for it to run. And many times as you need them. Say it 3 times. So run 3 times. Yay. Don't do this. Use a loop to do that, like a for or a while or whatever. Don't do that. That sucks. All right, next. Parameters and arguments. So this is just the fundamentals of functions. Now we want to pass things into the function. Okay. So we want to say thanks function as well, but let's add the customer's name. So name. And in TypeScript, you would say name : string, but in here that does not work because we are not in TypeScript. So thank you, and we're just going to add the name. Say thanks. Run. So now we've got a name that we have passed in, and thank you for purchase. And I'm going to make this a template string name, but make sure you put in your tildes on either side. Run. Okay. Copy and paste. No, I'm not going to do that. The customer named Cole just purchased something on your online store. Call say thanks Cole. Say thanks Cole. Okay. Run. Thanks, Cole. We appreciate your business. Now, what happens if you don't put something inside of there? It's going to say thank you for purchase undefined. Okay, so if you start seeing undefined, it means that you haven't put something in. And this is where TypeScript is helpful. It will force you, it won't even compile, it will not run unless you put something in there. That it knows that it will be a string. So that's what's really helpful. But this is where JavaScript kind of sucks, is it basically lets you do whatever it wants or whatever you want. And I don't like that. All right, so then you have default parameters. So these parameters, if you don't assign something like I did before, you can assign it to be something else. Like if you didn't assign it, right? Like if it doesn't exist, if it's an undefined variable, then it's going to be assigned at runtime. So the function make shopping list. Okay, assign milk to item 1. So milk. I'll get into why we do this. Bread. Item 3 is eggs. Okay, so now it's going to say yes, but it doesn't show what we do with that. So I'm going to say, just to make this a little bit easier, list. So I'm going to say list, and I'm going to type in, I don't know, coffee, napkins, and then nothing else. Okay, so now coffee we have passed in, so item 1 will be coffee. It's not going to be milk, it's going to be coffee. So console.log, remember to buy, item 1 will say coffee. The next one, again, will be napkins. It's not bread because we are putting it in. Item 2 will be napkins. And so the next one we did not put in, so item 3 will be assigned at runtime to be eggs. So we will expect to see coffee, napkin, eggs. Run. Coffee, napkin, eggs. That's how that works. Yay. We have default parameters in functions. Let's see what's that. All right. And then the last most common thing, or last important part of functions, is the return statement or the return keyword. Functions will default to return undefined. It's not like Rust where you have, if you don't put a semicolon, it'll return whatever that line is. If in functions, you have to put in a return statement. So when the function is called, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So imagine if we need to order monitors for everyone in an office, and this office conveniently arranged in a grid shape. We would need a default function for us to help us calculate the number of monitors needed. Okay. Function monitor count. First two parameters rows, columns. Okay. And I'd just like to abbreviate. I wonder if it'll break. You free columns. Okay, fine. Let's compute the numbers by multiplying. So I'm going to return rows times columns. Okay. So this function now returns a number of rows multiplied by columns, or of your two values put in. So now that each function is defined, we can compute the number. So declare a variable const num of monitors. Yep, num of monitors. I appreciate how we're using const now. Monitor count 5 or 4. So we have 5 rows and 4 columns, and I'm going to console.log to make sure that this is 20. Yep, we see 20. Now what happens if we don't put in a thing? So, okay, yes I did. What happens if we don't put in something? It says NaN because it's trying to type coerce undefined into a number. So we could do equals 5 or something like that, and so it'll default to 25. Sure, but this is important. So what we could do is we want to throw an error anytime rows and columns are not defined. So if type of rows equals undefined, and we could handle that if, and we could say or columns equals undefined. Actually, you can just do undefined. I don't need this type of right here. Then we could handle return 0. So now, if I don't pass something in, it'll return 0. Okay, that's a way to handle, oh, I didn't pass something in, and make it a little bit more type safe. So yeah, although it doesn't like that. So 5, 4, run. Great. And that is all for the fundamentals of functions. You have your parameters, your default parameters, and understanding that when you don't pass something in, it turns into undefined. And this is where JavaScript can be annoying, where you have to handle those states, but it won't like tell you to handle those states. Unlike TypeScript. TypeScript will tell you to handle those states. So, not states, the conditions. So, yeah, that is it for fundamentals of functions.